I was doing the digital nomad thing for a few years, and I would meet people when I would stay in hostels or co-working, some places like that. And I learned just introducing yourself to people just opens tons of doors.
Welcome to another episode of the Paid Search NYC podcast. Very excited to be joined today by Chris Chambers, who is head of paid search at Understory. Understory are a marketing agency based in Atlanta, and they specialize in scaling B2B tech SaaS style companies, which is pretty cool. Chris, thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's great to connect with you, and obviously great to come on the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, like many people, we connected over LinkedIn, had a few chats in the comments, had a call. And then from the discussions we were having, one of the things that came up was kind of your journey into the industry, which was really interesting. I don't want to say it was non-traditional, because I don't think there really is a traditional way in, but found it really interesting the way you kind of got into the industry and then are now head of paid search, and kind of wanted to spend the time today exploring that. So I don't know if like a logical starting point is maybe let's chat about kind of what you do today, and then we can go back to the beginning. So yeah, what kind of role are you in right now?
Yeah. So as you said, I work at Understory. So Understory Agency is a marketing agency based in Atlanta, Georgia. And so we're what's called an all-bound agency. I know that sounds like sort of a buzzword. It is sort of the common buzzword nowadays in SaaS and go-to-market motions for marketing agencies. But really what that means is that we're using a lot of different channels. So we do paid media, including LinkedIn ads, Google ads, Bing ads, of course, kind of goes with Google. We do outbound. We do a lot of clay building. So we're a clay enterprise partner. We do a lot of clay builds for people during their outbound prospecting, things like that. What I do is, as head of paid search, I manage our search teams. So I have a few people underneath me that are direct reports, and then other people that we work with that are contractors. We have internal design that we work with for things like display ads, video ads, stuff like that. Day to day, what that looks like is a lot of overall strategy. So high level strategy of what we're going to do in accounts, delegating work out to my team. But that doesn't mean I'm not hands-on in the accounts. So like I'm still in the accounts every day, building campaigns, doing management, all of that, but have support from a team on that as well. That also means like for bringing in new business, I'm on the majority of our sales calls. We get a lot of sales calls that are not quite sure what channels they want to do, because they'll hear about Understory. They'll hear that we're kind of like an all-bound solution. And so part of the challenge there, and when we do audits of their accounts, so I run the audits, and part of what we're figuring out is what channels are best for them to actually run. Like we don't try to push people on like, you need to do every single channel just because it might benefit us in some way. It's kind of like, what's going to be the best thing for your GTM motion? And so, yeah, I'm managing the paid search team for Google and Bing. Just managing all the strategy for that, doing audits for that, helping people where it's needed for clients. That includes conversion tracking, stuff like that.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense. One thing in there, stupid question, what's a clay build?
Yeah, so I guess I'm the right person to ask when it comes to if you don't know anything about clay, but I'm the wrong person compared to some of the people on our team, because they're like I don't like using the word wizard for anything marketing related. It always bugs me for some reason, but we do have some clay wizards on the team. So like I said, we're a clay enterprise partner. We also have a few people on the team, including our co-founder, Alex, and our head of GTM, Nafal. They're both also clay official partners individually. And so if you're not familiar with clay, it's basically a spreadsheet on steroids for go-to-market type of stuff. And I don't explain it in too detail because I might explain it wrong, because I know how to use it, but I'm not the best at it. But basically, if you open clay, what you're going to see is it looks like a spreadsheet, and you could upload a list of names, you could upload a list of companies. And then what it does is it integrates with, I believe, thousands of different tools. So that goes from like different email domain verification, finding emails, finding LinkedIn profiles, things like Apollo. I know Apollo has been in the news recently for being shut down on LinkedIn, but stuff like that. And so basically it enriches sales prospects. So you could put in just a list of names, and it will, through enrichments and through integrations, like each column will be a different integration. And so you could pull in what company they work for, what that company's revenue is, when they last raised the series C, B, etc. You could find like what their job title is, who the decision makers of those companies are, what their work emails are, verify that those domains actually work. And you can upload those to other tools like, say, Hey Reach, or to Instantly to do email marketing is what we use it for a lot. We'll also use it for direct prospecting. We'll use it for like Google prospecting lists. We kind of try to implement it in every channel that we run, but basically it's finding information about people and enriching information. And the way that Clay works is like they don't do any scraping themselves, and they don't do any of the data pulls really themselves. It's all integrated with these APIs with partner integrations. And so the way you pay is in Clay credits, but it's kind of like they're passing the cost on of these API calls to you. So you can also use AI like ChatGPT if you want to find the interest of people or like benefits differentiators of companies. You could pull that for each sale, but the way you'll be charged is whatever like ChatGPT's API pays per call. It'll pass that on to you in the form of Clay credits. So you're not really like Clay is not necessarily doing anything on its own. It's mostly pulling in all these tools together. It makes it really easy to run waterfalls, which is running multiple things at once, or running integrations to find data for people. It's really, really important for go-to-market nowadays. I'd say it's a big differentiator for us, not trying to be like salesy about Understory, but because it is somewhat known as something that I think a lot of people in the B2B SaaS space have definitely heard of. But there's a lack of experts for it because it's only been around like 3 years. So they got a 1.25 billion valuation a month or two ago, and they've been around like 3 years, I believe, 3 or 4 years. So growing really quickly in the space. But yeah, that's mostly what it's used for, is enriching data, finding things for email campaigns, and then we're always trying to find different ways we can implement it in the different channels that we run.
Got it. Makes sense. Thank you for explaining that. It sounds like a pretty powerful tool for B2B and makes total sense in terms of the value. Awesome. And then just to go on to the kind of B2B elements of the work you're doing and within paid search, what's that like? I mean, I've worked on some B2B clients, and it's different. You might be talking a lot about like value-based bidding and the importance of conversion tracking. Is also pretty fast-paced, especially if you're in a niche. I guess all niches are moving pretty quickly with AI disruption there. So what's that like in terms of like the speed you're having to work at?
Yeah, so it's a strange dynamic because so originally I started almost fully in e-commerce, and that's where I kind of like cut my teeth when it came to paid search and marketing in general. It's a very different thing because e-commerce is more fast-paced in the sense that you might be selling thousands of orders a day, having thousands of conversion purchases a day, so you can move a lot quicker on things like experiments and stuff like that. But I find that in SaaS, you move a lot quicker, in B2B SaaS especially, because those teams have a lot more clear directives a lot of the time than in e-commerce, and you're also working with the sales team a lot more integrated. And so it's really trying to get the leads, but also make sure that they're qualified. So value-based bidding does come into that a lot. Like that's one strategy we'll use, is having direct integrations between the CRM. So like either HubSpot or from Salesforce, and then we'll connect a value to each one. So like, the bottom level might just be book a demo. That doesn't really tell you much about if they're qualified, but you can at least start getting some conversion data in. And then as you get more, you get MQLs, you assign a value to that based on the conversion rate from book a demo, and then to SQL, then to closed one, and so on. And so we'll run like target ROAS, sometimes max conversion value in Google Ads, and just have all of those as primary conversions so that Google knows to go for the top one. Ideally, though, what we find is doing max conversions or target CPA and just going for the top level one. So like we'll start a book a demo, optimize until we're getting enough of those and enough MQLs, then switch to MQLs, go fully for those, and then just kind of give Google the best data possible. But yeah, I mean, in terms of it being fast paced, I'd say it definitely is. SaaS teams expect things to happen in hours or days, not weeks. A lot of times in e-commerce, you'll hear, "Oh yeah, we'll get that to you by the end of the month," and it works both ways too, right? So like, if we need something from a client, it's usually like by the end of the call, they've sent me the spreadsheet, and vice versa. Whereas in e-commerce, sometimes they'll say, oh, we'll get it to you by the end of the week. We'll get it to you, by the beginning of next quarter or something. So it's just a lot more fast paced in tech. I think a lot of the people, even if they're not from a marketing background and now are at a SaaS company, I think they come from more tech backgrounds where they're more strict deadlines, more strict projects. So everything just kind of moves a lot quicker, and you really have to stay on your toes a lot, especially for me, like as head of paid search, because I'm coordinating all the client relationships with what's happening on our end. And so it's having to make sure that like everything is kept up with, everything's organized, automated as much as possible in terms of workflows. So yeah, if that answers your question, it's a lot more fast paced in some ways, but also slower. And then of course you have long sales cycles and things like that. So it's kind of a give and take, I'd say, in terms of speed.
Yeah, makes sense. And that comparison between e-com and B2B SaaS lead gen and the differences in where that speed is, yeah, can totally relate to that. So that's what you're doing right now. How did you get into it all? Like, I'm not sure if like 3 paid search is a logical starting point, but if it is, let's start there.
We can start, I can start from the beginning. And feel free to cut in at any time. So, but I'll keep this kind of short and sweet. So what happened for me, like to go back really to the very beginning, was I actually was pre-med in college. So went to the University of Alabama. I was a pre-med student. Why I say pre-med, I was a biology major, planning to be pre-med. So I ended up dropping out. My older brother ended up having health issues. I ended up leaving school to go back home, help with all of that. And, just couldn't keep up with grades, things like that with that going on. And so ended up leaving college. I ended up working at a insulation factory. So a stone wool insulation factory, working on the yard there at first, like unloading chemical trucks, literally shoveling rocks outside, crawling through industrial ovens, grinding out grease, stuff like that. After a few years of that, I had a friend that worked in marketing, and he did the whole digital nomad thing. So it looked, of course, really cool to me to do. At the time, I thought that's what everyone in marketing did. And so he kept telling me, you need to learn this. You can learn some of this stuff for free from courses. And he had his own agency. He said, like, you can work for me a little bit. And so finally, one day I just thought, you know what, I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to see what I'm capable of doing with this. And so I started taking courses for free. So I'd work like 8 to 10 hours a day in the factory, come home, spend about 6 or 7 hours learning courses online, watching YouTube videos, helping, at first it was helping him, just taught me how to do negative keywords and things. I didn't know what a keyword was. So learning all that stuff. And then I ended up getting an entry-level job at an agency called Tycoon. So they're mostly e-commerce focused, still around, run by a really smart guy named Colin Slattery. He's great, one of the best in the world at Google Ads. He taught me a lot about Google Ads. So I'd say I leveled up like really fast there. And then just trying to constantly learn, I tried to keep that same mentality of just learning all the time. And so that's how I got into paid search. I was planning on doing Meta and Google when I first joined there because the agency did, but I found that paid search was more of my thing. And it was just what I liked learning better, paid search and CRO a bit. And so I was there for about 3 years, and then I ended up leaving, and I planned to start freelancing because that was actually my plan in the beginning, was to freelance. I thought that like I got this entry-level job quicker than I expected, but my plan was take all these courses, keep working at this factory, and then freelance in my free time and learn marketing. And then eventually I'll make enough money to where I can quit the factory and do that. So I got this entry-level job. Once I left there about 8 months ago or so, I guess it's about 8 months ago, I was planning on freelancing, and then Understory ended up taking on a lot of Google accounts, like more than expected. I was already helping with them in a contractor capacity, just on a few accounts. So it started making sense for me to just be full-time rather than billing like a contractor because of the number of accounts, and we needed to hire out people. They knew that I had experience managing teams and like helping to build out processes and agencies and stuff. So went on full-time at Understory, and that's when I switched to B2B SaaS, which was a pretty new world to me. But I think if you have a really solid foundation of Google Ads, you can learn kind of any niche. And it was really exciting for me. Honestly, it kind of renewed a lot of spark for me when it came to learning and doing Google Ads, because the B2B SaaS world, I just find I find it to be really interesting. There's a lot of like B2B SaaS is what we're niched in, and it sometimes seems like a small world. Like everyone knows each other. People job hop a lot in SaaS, and so we'll get on a sales call with someone that's a CMO, and it's like, wait, you were a CMO with this other company that we signed a few months ago, and so it's a small world, but it's also big enough to where there are a lot of respected people to talk to. And so yeah, we ended up doing the B2B SaaS thing and now running the team there, running the paid search side of things. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how I got to where I was. So not really a traditional path, I would say. Um, yeah, but as you said, when you asked the question, like I think that marketing in general and digital marketing especially does lend itself to non-traditional paths a lot of the time. Like you meet tons of people without college degrees. I've met plenty of people without high school degrees. I mean, like I think the education aspect matters more for like applying for a job, especially entry level. It'll just be a base requirement. But I think that people don't really care about it too much as long as you know what to do. And there's so many resources out there that I think that as long as you're constantly learning, as long as you're really applying yourself, you can get to be very good at this stuff, kind of regardless of background.
Yeah, makes sense. And an awesome story. But the thing I just wanted to sort of double click on is, so you talked about YouTube and sort of the huge amount of resources there to learn. The courses, were they paid courses or free ones? And can you remember where they were?
No, so I do remember the very first one I ever watched was Love's Data. I think it's just called Love's Data. It was really good for learning like Google Analytics and kind of the data analytical side. Still around, I believe, and I think it's pretty well known one. Unfortunately, I don't remember a lot of the other specific ones. I was just finding like any and all content that I could find because I didn't know anything about Google Ads or marketing at the time. So I started with learning Google Analytics to get a base, and I took all of the certifications, which now I know the certifications are maybe not so great for learning Google because it has, a lot of Google propaganda. It's not necessarily how you want to learn to do things. Like you'll learn a lot of bad practices, I think, if you do that now. But I did that as a base. And then, on YouTube, just finding channels that had a lot of views. My friends recommended some to me. Courses, honestly, not sure exactly. I might have a list somewhere, but yeah, they were all free. I just found whatever free resource I could find and just soaked all of them up. And then once I was working at that first agency, Tycoon, I was in this group called Foxwell Founders. It's run by a guy named Andrew Foxwell. Really, really smart guy, really helpful guy, great guy. That is a paid community. I don't know what the price is now. I know it's like a few $100s a month. This part of it was paid for by my company. Those are a great community to be in. There's another one, PPC club I was in. Really, I think that helped me level up. Once I knew the basics, being part of communities and making connections and asking questions helped me level up more than absolutely anything else. And that's something that I've thought about a lot with LinkedIn is you'll see top lists of PPC people, top lists of marketing people, and you see kind of the same faces a lot on LinkedIn. But something I think about a lot is, you don't really see big executives at somewhere like Group M or some big companies. So I think we're getting sort of a skewed perspective of who's actually interacting because they have reasons to be interacting, right? Whether it's to get clients, whether it's to boost their profile. And so I think a lot of the best kept marketing secrets are not necessarily out there on LinkedIn and on platforms like that. But when you join communities and you network and you meet people, it's a good way to bounce ideas off of each other. It's a good way to learn your strategies and just how other people think, because I think it's easy to get really, really tunnel visioned, especially when it comes to agency building, not just Google Ads, but of this is the right way to do it. We should build processes like this. We should approach clients like this. And then you learn other perspectives and think, oh, that works for them. Maybe that's another way to do. And I think it just opens your mind to a lot of things that, I think we as marketers sometimes have, at least I do, have a tendency to think that I'm doing things the right way because they're working, but there's always a better way, right? You can always incorporate things. So I think I know this was a very tangent answer to what you asked about the courses, but yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of free YouTube courses, a lot of free stuff, and then there are a lot of free communities as well. And I think communities are for learning the fastest. I think that's really one of the most valuable things people can possibly do.
I'm really glad you went off on that tangent. So that's a really great point, and a good take on in terms of the kind of content that's on LinkedIn and why that's being produced. And there's loads of great stuff out there. You know, there's people sharing news updates, product updates, which means you can stay on top of this stuff very, very quickly. But it's a great point that maybe to level up the thinking and the way you talk about certain things, getting into that community where it's people are showing for a different reason is a really good point. And I think this all, really helps people who are looking to get into the industry, because the advice is there's loads of free resources out there, YouTube, and maybe don't start super specific with just Google Ads. Maybe do Google Analytics to get a data baseline if you're not super comfortable with data, and then build from there, and maybe explore Meta, Google Ads, and kind of feel for what seems more interesting to you. Use those free resources, then find a community, use LinkedIn, spend a bit of money to get access to those communities. I think that's all really good advice. I think the next part is then how do you get that first break? Like with you knew that guy who was an agency founder and he gave you a shot. How do you do that? How do you get that first break?
That's definitely the hardest part, I think, for people to break in, because it's easy for me to think, oh, I came from working in this factory, I did it all by myself. But really, I had a friend that worked in marketing and he helped introduce me to a job in reality, right? So, and that kind of gave me, like, I wouldn't know what Google Ads was if it weren't for that. So obviously it's a big help. I think my advice to people, and I've had people message me before about this, and I've always tried to help them, because I really believe in like actually being helpful to people when they message you, or if you're in a community. I think that not even in like a mystical karma way, I think it just tangibly helps you. It's just a good thing to do, to put out there in the universe. And I think that really just finding people on LinkedIn, like if you're starting out, you're entry level, you're taking courses, I think finding agency owners or people that work at agency, gets people like me, like someone that's the head of paid search or head of something or whatever it may be at an agency, even maybe entry level people, they can at least give advice how they did it. So that's a different perspective. But reaching out to agency owners directly and saying, hey, would you mind mentoring me? Would you mind, if we hop on a call, maybe I can learn some things, maybe get an entry level position. I think that, like, I know at my old company, when we were running job applications, we would get thousands of applications, right? And like, we have to parse through all of them, and a lot of them would be rejected for various reasons, but like you're coming up against a ton of other people that don't have much experience. And so if you have no actual tangible experience yet, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage for just applying for that. And I think there's a chance you may just never get a job if you're doing it just that way, unless you get really lucky. So I think like LinkedIn is such a powerful tool to be able to directly reach whoever you want to reach. And so you can find people of like the type of agency that works for the type of niches you want. Ask them, maybe not start with something it's kind of like sales, right? You don't want to start being super salesy. You want to start a conversation. You want to start a relationship. And I think the way to do that in that situation is to ask for mentorship, ask for advice, just ask them, hey, how did you get here? Because people love to talk about themselves. People love to talk about their own journeys. I kind of do too, as you can tell from how I'm talking. But like, I think that, but people do in general like talk about themselves. So I think just messaging people that are leaders at agencies and saying, hey, I'm working to get into the industry. How did you get your break? What would you suggest that I do? Would you mind mentoring me on some things, stuff like that, and kind of easing into it? And there are a lot of nice people out there in this industry, and there are a lot of people that will help you with those types of answers, and that, you never know, you might get a job. So I think that's really the best way, is just utilizing LinkedIn to straight up directly message people that you would want to work for, that you want to learn from. Like, if you think someone's content is great, ask them, how'd you learn this stuff? A lot of people are willing to answer.
Yep, definitely agree. It's surprising how much people are willing to help if you just, reach out and ask them something specific. Yeah, can I just chat to you for 10 minutes about this one thing? People more often than not are more than happy to help out. I did something similar a week or two ago, the paid search meetup was connected with someone, Charlie. Shout out to Charlie in the UK. She runs an event in Manchester. I reached out to her and said, your event is way more established. You're way further ahead. Can I just chat to you about kind of how you got there and any advice? And she was like, yeah, sure. Jumped on a call. It's always great to see how people are just willing to help. And like you say, LinkedIn's great for that. You can find the right people. You can message them. So that's awesome. Yeah. And I think the other thing I'd add there is there's actually in-person networking as well. So
Yeah.
that's top of mind because I went to the digital marketing NYC meetup in person yesterday. Shout out to Alex who runs that. I met so many interesting people. It was like 20, 30 people there. Everyone's there ready to network, to chat, speak to people. So it's super easy. And you just meet so many interesting people in the space of an hour or two. And that, again, could lead to an opportunity, a job, or they know someone that knows someone. So getting out there in the physical world and networking is also just a great move. And I feel like every city has multiple events like that. So
Yeah, for sure. And like, I think that's really overlooked nowadays with how remote everything is. People don't really think about in-person events, but yeah, like I went up to New York for SaaS Open back in September, I believe it was, run by Nathan Laka. Straight guy, had a lot of people there, like, and yeah, I met a lot of people, and that was kind of when I was first starting with Understory. So it was a great introduction for me to a lot of SaaS leaders, a lot of people that worked in SaaS and kind of how they work. And that was actually my first, I'd been to conferences before, but that was like the first real big conference that I went to. And it definitely had me thinking like, I need to do this more often. I met so many people, and it was weird to me because it was the first big conference. So I wasn't used to how conferences work, of people just walking up to you like, hey, I'm this person. What do you do? This is what I do. And at first I was a little overwhelmed by it, but then I realized like, oh, this is what it's for. You network, you make relationships. And yeah, I thought it was great. Yeah, that was great. And if you do those, if you keep doing the paid search meetups, I will try to get up to New York.
yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, every month, hoping to get a few more people now the weather's getting better. It's been pretty brutal. December, January, February, it's always been or like minus 10 degrees. But yeah, that'd be awesome. I think just on that networking point as well, it is like a muscle. Like it gets easier the more you do it. As someone who was terrible at networking, a couple of years ago, you just have to do the reps. You have to get out there and practice, and it definitely gets easier. But also, if you're going to events that are specifically for networking, everyone's already primed. It's not like you're coffee shop and trying to strike up a conversation with a random person. Everyone's there for the same reason. So it's usually easier than you think to go to those spaces and like have those conversations.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I realized there too, because it felt a little bit awkward at first, to be honest. And then I realized, well, that's why everybody is here, is to do this. And yeah, I mean, I think in-person networking I think it's harder to do for someone that's like entry level because of costs. Like it can be cost prohibitive, obviously, to travel. But like you said, there are meetings in basically every city. So you can find plenty of stuff that you can go to. And I've met a ton of people. Like I was doing the like digital nomad thing for a few years, and I would meet people when I would stay in hostels or co-working, some places like that. And I learned just introducing yourself to people just opens tons of doors. And I think that's another thing is like, no matter where you work, if you work in your home city, I think getting out of as much as I like to work in my apartment, but also like, I think going to co-working, sometimes going to meetups and things like that makes a really big difference. You can meet people that are in the same space as you or other spaces, and it kind of opens your eyes to things, that are possible to do that you might not know about otherwise.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Well, I feel like there's been loads of great advice there. I guess to summarize, use the free resources, YouTube, free courses. That's a great entry point. Maybe don't go too specific. Start off fairly broad, find what interests you, but use those free resources to put that initial foundation of knowledge. Then look at those maybe paid communities. You can find free ones, great, but then there's communities where you can kind of get in one-on-one, ask questions and level up the thinking. And then I mean, get out there and hustle on LinkedIn, like find the right people, ask them for help, get out there in the real world. I think that's all great advice for people who are looking to get into the industry. So really, really enjoyed this, and thank you for coming on and sharing. It's been great.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.